All right, good evening. My name is Catherine from SEB Housing, and tonight I'm going to run the lottery for the 18 affordable rental units at the Asher in Ashland. And I'll get the lottery underway in just a few minutes. Just want to give everybody some background information on who applied first. If you have any questions during the session, you're free to either unmute yourself and ask, or use the chat function in Zoom to ask. So no need to write any of this information down because it's going to be emailed to you along with the waiting list after the lottery. You'll get an email from me tonight with all this follow-up. But there was 90 completed applications, and everyone should already have if you were approved for this lottery, you should already have your lottery application number. So that number was in the form of a series of numbers. So in this case, it was A.001 all the way up to A.092. And it goes up to 92 because there was a couple duplicate applications that we needed to remove. So there's only 90 applicants, but the application numbers go up to 92. So there's 18 total affordable rental units, like I mentioned, and 12 of those are one-bedroom apartments. There were 38 completed applications for those one-bedroom apartments. 2 of the one-bedroom apartments are disabled accessible, and there were 2 applicants who require the disabled accessible features of that unit, or of those units, I should say. So those 2 people will have priority on the waiting list for the disabled accessible one-bedroom units. There's also 6 two-bedroom apartments, and there were 63 completed applications for those 2 bedrooms. 3 of the 2-bedroom apartments have disabled accessible features, and there were an additional 2 applications for a 2-bedroom disabled accessible unit. So back when you completed your application, your lottery application, you indicated, and then SEB Housing confirmed your household type. So you're either type 1 or type 2, depending on the household composition, how many people are in your household. Just a reminder that for this lottery, type 2 households, so larger households generally, are going to have priority over any type 1 household for the 2-bedroom unit. So that's because the affordable housing program is designed so that households who don't necessarily require another bedroom don't have priority for those larger bedroom sizes. There's also local preference or priority for several of the units. So if you answered yes on your lottery application to whether or not you live or work full-time in Ashland or have a child going to Ashland Public Schools, then for some of these units, there will be a local priority, meaning that households who have local preference will have a higher position on those waiting lists. There was a total of 12 applicants who indicated that they have local preference. Everyone will have a position on each waiting list. If you apply for a 1-bedroom, you're going to have a position on the 1-bedroom local preference list and the 1-bedroom general or open list. It's just that on that local list, households with local priority will have a higher position. So there's going to be 2 lottery drawings tonight. I'll be using the website random.org. I'm going to screen share with you so you can see the drawing happen. First, I will do the local preference drawing, and that will include households that have local preference, like I said, that either work or live in Ashland. I'll put those 12 local preference household numbers into the list randomizer function in this website, random.org. I'm going to demonstrate it in just a second so you can see what I mean. And basically, the website is going to digitally generate an order of the numbers. So it's going to do the drawing manually by just sorting the numbers rather than having us pull out of a box. So next, after the local preference drawing, I'll do the general drawing. So all 90 lottery households will have their application number entered into the list randomizer at that point, and I'll do the same thing and just generate a random order. And I'm going to screen share now just to show you kind of what that looks like. This is just a demonstration, so it's not, this isn't the drawing quite yet, but just to give you an idea of what that website looks like. So I'm sharing my screen now. This is random.org, just a very basic looking website. I'm going to scroll down to list randomizer. And then when it comes time to do the drawing, your lottery application number is going to be entered into this box. It's going to be in the form that you're familiar with, like A.001, for example. But for just these demonstration purposes, I'm going to type in numbers 1 through 5. And then I'm going to click randomize. And the computer is going to generate that random order for us, which is the drawing results. So I'm going to click randomize. In this case, in this simulation, the first number drawn was number 4, followed by 2, followed by 1. So when I do the actual drawing, these are going to be lottery application numbers in order, but just so you have a sense of what that'll look like in a few minutes when I do the actual drawing, I wanted to show you that. So I'm going to use those results from the drawing tonight to sort the results onto waiting lists. And the waiting lists are what determines the order in which households will be able to reserve apartments. So it's important to remember that tonight's drawing is not going to be the final order of the waiting list, because I still need to sort the results based on household size and local preference, whether or not your household needs a disabled accessible unit and all of that. So if you're a type 1 household, for example, and your number is drawn first, you're not going to have the first position on a waiting list if you applied for just a 2-bedroom, right? Because the type 2 households or the larger households are going to have a higher or a more preferable priority on the waiting list. So just keep that in mind. You will get an email from either info@SCB Housing tonight or, well, actually, yes, it will be from info@scbhousing.com. And it will have the sorted waiting list attached for you, because I'm going to be working on those tonight, so they go out to you this evening. So you'll also, like I said, have a write-up of kind of like the next steps in this process, because this lottery is just one step in the process. So far, every lottery applicant has only submitted the lottery application with your self-reported income, assets, all of that stuff. But we still need to confirm your verifications of your income and all of that to confirm that you're eligible for the affordable housing program. So if you're one of the top households on the waiting list after tonight, you are going to be invited forward to complete a lease screening with the leasing office over at the Asher. So that would be the next step in the process if you're one of those top households. When you get that email from us tonight, if you're one of the top households, your lottery application number is going to be highlighted in green, and that's just indicating that you're one of the households that can expect to hear from the leasing office to complete that next step. And again, just a reminder, the lease screening with the leasing office is similar to if you've ever had a landlord check references or do a credit check or anything like that. It's going to be similar to that. And it's not completed by SCB Housing. It's the leasing office themselves that will be doing that. And then just a reminder too, if you applied for more than one unit size, so if you applied for both a 1-bedroom and a 2-bedroom, you're going to want to look for your lottery application number on both waiting lists, because you will have a position on both of the waiting lists if you applied for both and were eligible for both sizes. So if you move forward to the next step in the process and you do your lease eligibility screening with the leasing office, if you're found to be lease eligible, the household with the highest position on each waiting list is going to have the first chance to select and reserve one of the affordable apartments. So if you're the first person on the 1-bedroom waiting list, you get the first chance to check out all of the 1-bedroom affordable units and decide which one you would like to reserve. And then it kind of goes down the list from there. Once the first person has reserved a unit, the second person gets to choose from the rest of the available units. So if you're not one of the top households on the waiting list after tonight, you won't be moving forward in the process right away. But if others ahead of you on the waiting list drop off, so maybe they're not eligible for the lease screening, or they're found to be ineligible later in the process, or maybe they just decide that they're no longer interested in renting at the Asher, then you could be contacted at a later time. So just keep that in mind, because it is often, that people drop off these waiting lists during the screening processes. So you should have received a documentation requirements guide when you were approved for this lottery, and that sort of details everything that you're going to need to eventually submit to SEB Housing if you move forward in the process after your lease screening. So hopefully you've been able to gather some of that information already, because after a lease screening with the leasing office, you'd be referred back to SEB Housing to complete the program eligibility screening, which is, the point in time where you need to submit pay stubs and bank statements and that sort of thing to confirm the self-reported income and assets that you listed on your lottery application. So once that happens, you'll have about 10 days to work with us and get that information in. But of course, if you don't have everything all at once, we'll work with you and extend the deadline as needed. I've been told that the first affordable units at the Asher are scheduled to be available for occupancy around mid-July. But they are leasing units now, and there should be not much of a wait at all to get that started. And then just a reminder that households living in affordable apartments will need to have a recertification each year. So if you end up renting one of these apartments, just make sure that you are able to access your, finances, pay stubs, tax returns, that sort of thing each year, because you'll need to complete that process with the leasing office. Any questions before I run the drawing? And then once I do the drawing and you're able to view it and screen share, because I'll be screen sharing, if you don't see your lottery application number, I'll be able to look it up for you so you can see where you fall or where you fell during the drawing. But again, just a reminder that the results of tonight's drawing are just kind of one step in the process. I still need to sort the results onto the waiting list. So it's not going to tell you a whole lot, but at least you'll know if you were drawn sort of towards the beginning of the drawing or if you're maybe further down. So any questions before I start? If not, I'll screen share again. And we'll start with the local preference drawing. All right, so I'm going to screen share again. I'm going to get back to random.org. You should be able to see my screen again. All right, I'm going to list randomizer again. And then I have a spreadsheet here with the 12 application numbers of the households who reported that they have local preference, meaning they live in Ashland or work full-time or have a child going to Ashland Public Schools. So this is the 12 people here, 12 application numbers that I'm going to insert and do the local preference drawing for the Asher and Ashland. So again, this is the local preference drawing. I'm going to click randomize. It tells me there were 12 items in my list. I'm going to take the results of the local preference drawing and then just bring them over here so it's a little bit easier to view. So just give me a second. And I will show you the results in just a sec here. All right, so this is the local preference drawing results. Number 88 was first, and then it goes down to the 12th position here. I'm going to do the general drawing now before I look up any numbers for anyone. So I'm going to go to just X out of that completely and go to the list randomizer again. And this is going to be the general drawing, which includes all 90 households who were approved for the Asher and Ashland for this lottery. So again, I'm going to copy and paste the 90 application numbers here into the list randomizer. And they're all in there. I'm going to click randomize. It's telling me there were 90 items. And I'm going to put this into my spreadsheet so it's a little easier for everyone to see who has their screen up right now. So I'm going to, again, just bear with me for a second to make this a little easier to read. All right, so that was the drawing, right? The website kind of did it for us. And if you, first of all, here's the local preference list. I'm going to make it as big as I can on my screen without cutting it off. This is the local preference priority here. So this is all households who indicated they had local preference. This is the order of their priority on waiting lists that have local preference, and then the general drawing. I'm going to make this a little bigger too. First number drawn was number 26, and then it goes down from there. So I'm going to scroll real quick so you can take a look at the order. And then if you did not see your number, or if you've called in and are not able to see the screen right now, feel free to either type your application number into the chat function or unmute yourself, and I can look it up for you and let you know where your application number was drawn. Just scrolling down to 90 for now. And that's the end of the list there. So that's the general drawing, which includes all 90 households. Does anyone want me to look up the number, their lottery application number, if you weren't able to see it? And again, these aren't the waiting lists just yet. These aren't the waiting list just yet because I need to sort the results onto the waiting list by household type and what bedroom size you applied for and all of that. Anybody want me to look it up for them? If not, you can hang tight and I'll be sending out the results very soon. Yep, okay, so number 0072.
I can't even write.
So 0072, you were drawn 54th in the...
Son of a... Why can I not see it? Chat. Okay.
Yep, so you were 54th.
Name is...
How many apartments are available for local preference? So I'm going to bring up, I'm just going to kind of move this over onto the screen. This is the breakdown of the waiting list here and how I'm going to be sorting the results. So for local preference waiting list, there are 12 units that will have local preference, that households will have local preference, and then there are 6 that will not have local preference. And again, there's only 12 households who have local preference. So some of these apartments will likely be rented to households who don't have local preference. And there's going to be some local preference households who, for example, applied for a 2-bedroom, but they are type 1 households, so they're not going to have priority over this 2-bedroom or type 2 households who don't have local preference. So your household size is weighted more heavily than whether or not your household is local preference for these 2-bedroom apartments, as you can see in kind of the order of priority here. Does anybody else want me to look up their number before I start sorting?
You do know, make the point that this is sort of the first of what could be more, given that
I love you, you love me, right?
Anyone else? All right, so I'm going to start sorting the results, and you'll get an email from me.
Whatever. I think it's 0052. I don't know. Because
52,
I have
you said?
to go in. Now I have to see if I can find the freaking number.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, just let me know your lottery application number if you find that email from SEB. And then there's a question here, can I rent an apartment market price with a rental voucher? So the affordable prices, if you're asking about market rate, you could, depending on whether or not your agency, your voucher administering agency approves of the market rent. So I don't know offhand what the market rents are at the Ashers. So it's possible that they're too high for the payment standard for Section 8. But if they are, you could rent an affordable apartment. And then you obviously, when you're using your voucher, you're not paying the full amount of the rent, which I'm going to bring that up too. These are the affordable rents here. So they're still pretty high, obviously. given that rents in the area are high. So if you're looking to rent a 1-bedroom, this is going to be the full contract rent, but you would only be paying your 30% of the portion like you normally do. Yep, so your voucher is for $25.68. Again, I don't know what the market rate rents are, and if you have to pay utilities, which you would here, it may go over that $25.68, or it could be close. So you would want to check in with your housing agency about that. If you're not one of the top households on the waiting list, that could be an option for you potentially. Does anyone else want me to look up their number? And again, the results from tonight are going to be sorted onto the waiting list. You'll get the waiting list from me tonight, and you're going to have a much better idea as to where you fall. If your application number is highlighted in green, you're going to be contacted very shortly by the leasing office to start that lease screening. And if you have any questions once you get the waiting list results, definitely let us know. All right, so if nobody has any other questions, I'm going to sort the results, and you'll hear from me from info@sebhousing.com. So just be aware that that is the email address that you will have the waiting list come to you from. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.